Hey, ideators and entrepreneurs, CUNY Startups here. Welcome to CUNY and Beyond, the podcast dedicated to helping aspiring entrepreneurs through storytelling. We're excited to dive into the entrepreneurial endeavors of CUNY students, alum, and bonus entrepreneurs who are willing to share their valuable insights with you. Join us for today's show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to CUNY and Beyond. This is Adia Johnson. We have a special guest, Milka Rodríguez, who is the founder of Globetrotting Dominicana. She established this in 2021. Thank you, Milka, for joining me today to have this quick chat. Before we jump into questions, I kind of want to do a quick game called Would You Rather. It's going to be travel edition.
Okay.
So the first one is, would you rather be able to understand and speak every language in the world or be able to teleport to any country at any time?
I think I'd rather be able to teleport to any country at any time.
Would you rather travel first class everywhere but only stay in 2-star hotels, or stay in 5-star hotels and fly in the middle seat in economy every time you fly?
I think I'd rather stay in 5-star hotels and travel in the middle seat in economy.
Same. I love middle seats, by the way. I hate being on the window seat because I have to use the restroom a lot and I always have to hop over 2 people. And then like if you're in the aisle seat, you're getting bumped. So I'm like, I prefer the middle. Would you rather miss your flight or lose your luggage?
That's a hard one.
It is.
That's a hard one. I think I'd rather maybe lose the luggage.
Lose the luggage. Yeah. Me, I don't know, it's hard for me too, but I was like figuring maybe like miss my flight only because like if I'm packing stuff, like I want to take those things with me. And if I lose it, I'll be like so heartbroken. Would you rather have unlimited time off, but be restricted to a tight travel budget, or only have 1 week off a year, but unlimited money to do whatever you want that week?
No, I think I'd rather have unlimited time off with a restricted travel budget.
Would you rather go on an epic trip where lots of things go wrong, or a boring trip where nothing goes wrong?
I feel like I've been on a lot of epic trips where a lot of things go wrong and was able to survive them and make the best of them. So maybe that one.
Okay, awesome. Same for me. Because, what's the point of going on a boring trip? Would you rather travel with a personal photographer or a personal chef?
I think maybe a personal chef.
Would you rather travel domestically for the rest of your life or travel internationally for the rest of your life and never see anything else in your own country outside of the city and town that you live in?
Yeah, I think I'd rather just travel internationally for the rest of my life.
Would you rather end all wars or fix world hunger? This is a beauty pageant one. Maybe end all wars. Because I feel like wars can lead to making hunger issues even worse. Right. Well, I picked hunger only because I was thinking like usually wars end up happening because there are people who are like have disadvantages and they are hungry. So it's just like, I don't know. I was like, this is a either or. Either one works.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for playing this quick game. So also I want to say, as a caveat, we had a few students who kind of requested to have someone in the travel business
awesome.
talk for our podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, for sure.
So you started your business in 2021, doing globetrotting in Dominicana. Your business primarily aims to do service learning and leadership programming for youth and eco tours that are in the Dominican Republic. So how did you get into traveling and having a traveling business?
So for me, traveling is something that started when I was a teenager, and it started through internships. Internships and like student travel opportunities. That's what I call them. So that includes internships that I had where I would spend like an entire summer designing. I used to be in a landscape architecture program when I was in undergrad. So I would be like designing gardens out for like low income communities in Pennsylvania, or I went and I did a Habitat for Humanity in Palm Beach, Florida for an entire week. And I also went and I was interning as an environmental education intern at the Grand Canyon for an entire season. So it started out with a lot of these kind of like youth and student travel opportunities. And that's really what piqued my interest and helped me see like what was out there for me and what was, possible for me. I also went to school outside of New York City. I went to school upstate in Syracuse. And, a lot of my peers came from backgrounds where it was normal to travel. So I went to school and some people had already been to Brazil while they were in high school. They had already been to Europe while they were in high school, where I never really had those opportunities. And what I did notice about folks that were exposed to travel at a young age is that they came into college very aggressive. They already knew what to do, what not to do. They came in with a level of confidence and just like the ability to introduce themselves into the social fabric of such a large university in a very short period of time. I felt like they were just kind of knocking it out. Well, I was just kind of very shy, and I felt that way, even though people tell me that I didn't come across that way. And I always felt like I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know what the next step was. And I did notice that even some of these folks that came from these families, they already knew what master's degree they wanted to get. They already were applying for some of these, like teaching English abroad, or they already knew to do a Fulbright to teach English in Colombia or in Germany and stuff like that, where I was like, where do you even learn about this? I felt like I was kind of behind when it came to that, but I learned a lot with these people about like backpacking, how to pack my bags, how to make like a week's worth, fit an entire trip into a book bag, and all of these different, kind of like little tips and travel hacks. And then after that, I started kind of traveling on, with family members to the Caribbean. And that's where I really kind of became more interested in ecotourism in the Caribbean, ecotourism in the Dominican Republic. And then eventually I was working in a place where it was mostly single women, and all young girls in their like mid to late 20s. And they were all single, and they were all just traveling and by themselves too. And I was like, wow, you just came back from Spain and you weren't scared? Like, no, I went by myself. And I was like, oh my God, like I could never see myself doing that. But then it turns out I was sitting right next to someone who was like, yeah, I left my job at some bank and I had like $20,000 or $30,000 saved in the bank. And then they went and traveled like for an entire year, and they went and visited like 30 different countries with the money that they had saved up. And I was like, wow, there's all these like young females that are killing it out here, and they're just jet setting across the globe, and here I am kind of just scared to do that. So it really inspired me. My colleagues and also other folks in my network really inspired me. And then I started my own solo female travel journey. And eventually, when I was enrolled in my master's degree at City College, I did my master's in sustainability in the urban environment. During that time, I applied to a few travel opportunities, and that included traveling. I landed a scholarship with an international NGO to travel on a Japanese charter boat through Nicaragua, El Salvador, and also Panama. And we did like different types of exchanges with mayoral offices, government offices, youth development groups, indigenous groups. We did an indigenous day with the Emberaquera tribe in Panama, and a whole bunch of other really awesome like cultural and activities as well. And I also during that time was also advancing in my own solo female travel journey and kind of like traveling to many different countries. And I also landed an opportunity with another international NGO to do research in the Dominican Republic. And it was like, these were like funded opportunities. And so that really opened up my mind as to like how important it is to have these programs for young people, and how important cultural and nature immersion travel opportunities are as well. Because there's a lot of history when you travel to another country and you learn about how the nature and the culture is intertwined. Because then you get a better sense of why it's so important to protect the cultural heritage, and why it's so important to protect the environment in these locations, and how tourism also can contribute to the economic development of the communities that you were visiting, because you're bringing dollars or euros into these communities and then staying in these communities, opposed to going to large hotel chains or like resorts, which are large corporations that aren't necessarily investing those funds into the local communities. So I really learned through all of these experiences, the importance of like sustainable travel, community tourism, cultural and environmental travel. So, it was quarantine, and I had some time to kind of decompress. I had finished my master's degree and I was working at the mayor's office at the time. And there was someone had told me about a program in Fast Track for the female entrepreneur through the New York City Department of Small Business Services. And I went and I applied, and it was a 10-week program. They help you build a business plan and a marketing strategy, and they help you figure out like how to, interview folks who would potentially be your customers in the future. And they kind of like really prep you with a lot of the tools that you need to kind of start up a business. And then I've just been building out the company ever since. I decided that I wanted to do something similar to the types of kind of like a compilation of what I had learned through all of these experiences that I had personally participated in, and my own struggles as being like an inner city youth, going away to a university that it was like a SUNY school that had a partnership with a private university, which was Syracuse, and having to navigate such a large institution and having to navigate two institutions because my degree was like 2 degrees in one. I have 2 stamps on my undergraduate degree. I have a SUNY stamp and I have a Syracuse stamp.
Oh, wow.
So I've had to learn how to navigate 2 completely different systems as an undergraduate and just all the difficulties that came along with that. And I strongly believe that travel is a really great way to build people's self-esteem and to instill in them the confidence needed and to, 1, be a leader, and 2, to be able to really hold their own in any space that they go to. So it doesn't matter if you're traveling to Africa or Brazil, Argentina, Antarctica, Iceland, or San Francisco, that you are able to kind of get there and own your space. The impetus for the youth travel program and kind of like the goal really is connect young people to networks and also connect young people to opportunities that will provide the exposure that they need. Exposure to other young leaders, exposure to stakeholders abroad, other stakeholders here in the New York City area, the tri-state area. You don't really get everything that you need from your classes or your professors, and sometimes you don't even have enough mentors or the kind of mentors that can really speak to you in school. And I feel like there are other avenues, and I believe that sustainable travel is definitely an avenue to instill confidence and to instill leadership capabilities in the youth.
So you mentioned that you did a lot of solo traveling. Big up to solo traveling. I love to travel alone. So you did a lot of solo traveling, and you kind of wanted to bring that experience that you learned to other to the youth and to be more environmentally friendly and sustainable. So where was your first trip with like a group of students, and how did you kind of like, what challenges did you encounter planning that trip for the group, and what happened during that trip?
The first trip that I went to together with that was organized by the school was through Habitat for Humanity. And we went to Palm Beach, Florida. And I wasn't necessarily even part of Habitat for Humanity at that point. I was just really excited by the opportunity to be able to kind of like, 1, do something that was fun, 2, get to know new students, and 3, be able to kind of like do this really interesting experience that I could also put on my resume and I ideally, expand my network through. I remember that back then, the entire experience, I think it was like 7 days or something, was $400. And this was back in like the early 2000s. And so I was like, wow, I don't think I'm ever in my life going to be able to spend an entire week anywhere for $400. Mm-hmm. So I jumped on it. Some of the challenges were, for example, coordinating who's going to drive a group of students all the way down to to Palm Beach, Florida, and taking turns along the way. Other challenges for the people who weren't in the car driving, but were the passengers, were like staying awake and keeping the drivers entertained. So we would come up with games in the car to keep everybody entertained. Because if not, people doze off, and we can't have that. We can't have people dozing off because there's a lot of liability involved in taking young people to a different part. I think also some of the challenges were when we were actually at the location building the houses. Sometimes it was kind of difficult understanding exactly what roles we were supposed to be doing because it was so many volunteers. And I think also just kind of like the dynamics of the group as well, right? If I remember correctly, I was the only woman of color on that trip. Mm-hmm. So sometimes there are just kind of things that come up, with being able to relate to other folks on the trip. Maybe your lived experiences are so drastically different that there isn't really much in common other than just an interest in participating in that kind of project. So a lot of kind of like the interpersonal challenges as well. And also because you don't have sometimes enough of a foundation, it makes it sometimes difficult to stay in touch after the trip. Something that could have been done better was maybe have some kind of engagement after the trip so that it can continue, going and folks to continue collaborating and coordinating and communicating with each other. So I think those are sometimes the challenges of some of these student travel opportunities. Is like you meet these people, but then your lives are so different, and you guys just kind of lose touch. And at least now we have WhatsApp And at least now we have like all of these other different tools. But back then we didn't really have that. So unless you took down someone's phone number, email, you kind of just didn't really hear or see them much ever again.
For your Globetrotting Dominicana, do you kind of like vet students who are going to be going on these eco tours with you, so this doesn't kind of happen, or like how does that process work?
Yeah, I strongly believe in like having an eligibility criteria, and I strongly believe in kind of being able to assess like what's the strength of their resume and the experience on their resume, having them write like an essay explaining why they're interested in participating and also what they feel they're going to get out of it and how it's going to help them in their career, getting references from teachers as well as like looking at their transcript. So these are some of the things that are really important considering which students get to participate. And also you can't just give things to people for free. Right? Like when I went on that trip to Habitat for Humanity, I paid $400 out of my own student pocket. I didn't ask my mom or my dad. And I think there has to be an investment on the side of the student as well, because if you give things to people for free, then they think it's just like a free trip. And there's no real investment on their part. And so I think there needs to be like a certain portion that the student or the family would have to pay. It doesn't have to be a ton, but it definitely has to be something. I also strongly believe in having like a really strong eligibility criteria in order to weed out the youth who are not that interested, who see this as a free trip, who this doesn't really align with their career goals, and maybe who would be creating certain interpersonal dynamics that would be difficult for myself to manage or that would create a negative experience for the other young people.
CUNY students, they don't necessarily are just going to school, right? Some of them have families that they need to take care of. They have maybe one or multiple jobs, and they're still trying to get ahead and do all these different like internships and kind of like build up their resume. So keeping that in mind about those students, back to you. You used to work for the United Nations. Now you're back with the United Nations. You've done accelerator programs where you've done like clean energy. You've done boot camps. You've done solo traveling. You're busy, right? How do you manage that as well as like planning for trips and making sure that your personal and the students' experiences are kind of valuable and worthwhile?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to partner up with a group or an organization that's on the ground. So I do have a partner out there that specializes in youth travel. And they coordinate with a lot of American-based universities as well as nonprofits that offer youth development programming. So they're very well versed in that. They provide really strong training for their staff on diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as like what is decolonized travel and what is a decolonized curriculum. We're aligned when it comes to those goals. They would be the ones to handle the logistics. But I would be the one, and when I say logistics, I mean, they're the ones to help with like coordinating the hotel, the transportation, and providing quotes, since they're more up to date with the pricing and they're on the ground. And other things that comprise the logistics, like the food, tour guides. And it's up to me. I'm the one who then I'm the tour host. I coordinate all of these different folks together. I know exactly what the curriculum is going to be. I'm going to be the one delivering the curriculum. I'm going to be the one recruiting the youth, and also resourcing them with the information that they need before the trip, during the trip, and after the trip.
What are some tips students can use to maximize an international travel experience on a low budget? You mentioned before, like you were part of an experience where you only had to pay $400, but there are not many experiences like that for a lot of students. So if a student does want to travel and you're low on their funds, how can they kind of like have a great experience and be culturally aware as well?
I would say if it's something through your school or if it's something through an organization and you have to pay for it, I would go ahead and first ask your school department if they have any funds that they can help you with. Sometimes your school department might be able to help you with $200, $300. And then there are also kind of like travel scholarships sometimes through either your specific school or through CUNY. You might want to like ask around, and literally you have to, I went to CUNY. I know what it's like. You literally need to go in there and knock some doors. Bang some doors down, and they need to know you on a first name basis and ask around for different department heads. Do you have scholarship or do you have additional funds for these type of things? And you can tell them, regardless of whether the travel opportunity is like a service learning project or if the travel opportunity is a conference, right? There are many different ways that you can still travel while at the same time being able to put something down on your resume. It could be like a training somewhere in another part of the state, or a training in a different part of the city, or even the country or abroad. And it can still go on your resume. Pitch it to them as something that's going to help advance your educational career. I would say there's also a lot of like youth travel opportunities online. There's actually one. She's a Gen Z travel creator that created a platform specifically where she promotes different types of like youth travel opportunities.
Okay.
I can't think of the name right now, but these platforms do exist, and it's pretty much a database of all different opportunities out there. Different nonprofits that are out here offering scholarships for young people to travel as well. There's one called SIDA, is the Student Youth Travel Association, and I think they will provide scholarships for folks that are 18 and under. So if you're a freshman, you can still apply. And I think that they cover like I think almost all of it. And all you have to do is just meet the eligibility criteria. And I think all you have to do is just get somebody to nominate you. Ask your travel abroad department at school as well if they have any funds. You can also do like an independent research study. And it can be like, let's say you and put it down on your transcript as an independent research study, and use the independent research study funds to say that you're going to do something abroad. And as part of your independent research, there's a travel component to it. So
I never knew that they would give you money for an independent study. I thought that was something that like you're just taking as a class, or you're paying to take the class.
There are some independent research projects where I think that they give you like a stipend.
Oh.
And also, if you're a student looking to do independent research, there's companies out there that will fund independent research projects. They won't call it an independent research project. You have to be, you need to figure out how to work it. But there are like different groups out there that will pay young people to travel somewhere and do research, or they'll pay young people to travel somewhere and do some kind of like service learning or community project. Also, if it's not too expensive, don't feel any type of way about just charging into your credit card. If it costs $1,000, $2,000, you can very easily pay that off once you graduate. Like, I know a semester abroad will probably be close to like $20,000, but if it's an opportunity where it's like just a few $1,000s and you can easily pay that off in small increments, I would say go for it. If you think that it's going to really change your life and that you really need it, and you're going to gain skills and networks and connections that you currently don't have. Don't break the bank either, but don't feel threatened or scared to take on like a $1,000 or like $2,000 and charge it on a credit card, or take like a little mini loan. It's at the end of the day, after a few years, like you'll be glad you did it.
Who do you feel is like your biggest supporter or role model or mentor over the course of your professional and personal journey?
That's a hard one, right? Because I feel like at the very beginning of my kind of professional journey, I didn't really have very many mentors or support. I ended up genuinely figuring a lot of things out completely on my own. But I would say that my biggest mentors were literally just like the young people that I met along the way, who came from very different cultural backgrounds and also socioeconomic statuses than myself, and just seeing how they maneuver and just learning from other people as to how they play the game. Navigating a large institution like CUNY or SUNY, or even a private university or an HBCU or an Ivy League university, it's a game, and you need to kind of observe the people who are playing the game and playing it well, and learning from them, and ask them, how is it that you're always doing your homework on time? How is it that you're able to balance all these different leadership positions and all these clubs at school and still be able to get your homework done? And just ask what they do. I would say your biggest opportunity is learning from people who are very different from you. And your biggest opportunity is to really build relationships and branch out, because sometimes people just want to kind of stick to their own cultural group or to their own ethnic or maybe religious group. And you're missing out on opportunities because you're not out here talking to different people. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't talk to the popular ones, talk to the nerdy ones, talk to the sporty ones, talk to the emo and punks, if that even exists anymore. I'm not sure.
It does.
There's no emo and punks. I thought it was just like an early, like decades ago. But talk to everybody. Become a floater. You don't need to just only be part of one little clique. Become a floater. Be friends with people in every clique. And ideally, to be quite honest, some of the things that I would say if you can join some kind of organization, whether it's a Habitat for Humanity on campus or Engineers Without Borders or a Greek organization, I would say do that, because those are groups that are well established and they have alumni, and you have access to all of those alumni on all of the folks that had gone through those programs previously.
I agree. I didn't have that as well. It was definitely from my peers and from just life experiences in general.
Yeah, just figuring it out on my own. Yeah. And ideally, I would get like a little gold nugget every so often, but it was really up to me. Yeah.
And how can our listeners connect with you, follow you on your journey?
Yeah, definitely. So you can reach out to me on Instagram at globetrottingdominicana.net. Globetrotting Dominicana. I also have my own website, which is globetrottingdominicana.net. I'm going to be organizing meetups. I have one coming up on September 21. So if that's something that you're interested in, we're going to be doing hiking in Cold Springs in the Lower Hudson Valley. So that's for folks who are sustainable travelers or who aspire to travel more and would like to meet other travelers and kind of, learn from other peers. I'm hosting that meetup. I'm also hosting a meetup on October 3rd. Or maybe October 4th for Hispanic Heritage Month. It's going to be at Gitano Island, NYC. It's a restaurant in Governor's Island. So those are some of the things that are coming up as well. If you want to participate in those meetups, I'll be organizing more throughout the fall. I'm looking to also do like an apple picking experience. And this is just like a way of just building community with New York City based sustainable travelers or those who aspire to travel more in a fun way.
I love that you're doing local meetups as well. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Milka, for joining me today to talk with you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
I will connect with you further because I do love traveling. So
there's like a group at the university, whether it's like, I think they have like the hiking club or all these other outdoorsy type of groups that would be interested in like collaborating with me, and we can do something together. I'm definitely open to that as well, or even through the alumni organization as well.
And I won't lose my focus. Oh, this I know it's in my soul.